You can hear the dog in the background. Murphy. Jason and I are literally sitting like 2 inches. His legs are so long. He can't get in the picture. We're having a moment right now. Okay, so what I thought would be fun, interesting, I don't know. I'm like, Jason just asked me before, it's like, are you regretting doing this with me? I'm like, right now, maybe. Not regretting. Okay, I wanted to talk about, because yesterday was Sunday, the May 8th, which was Mother's Day. Also, the idea of it's not our responsibility to meet each other's needs, because I think a lot of times, and we've been to therapy, we can talk about that, is that at least the therapist I've seen is like, tell me what your needs are, tell me what her needs are, and then let's try to meet those for each other. So as he beautifully painted my office wall while I was gone, one of the things that I wanted to say was it's not our spouse's responsibility to meet our needs. And also we can appreciate the other, right? Like we can make requests like, hey, you like painting, right? Mm-hmm. I'm using this as an example, but you like painting, you like fixing things, but there have been times before where you're like, look what I did, look what I did. And you're doing that from that place of, I want you to say thank you. I want you to acknowledge me. Like some people might be familiar with like the 5 love languages, right? And I think your love language is words of affirmation, right? Like you love it when I tell you I love you. You love it when I, tell you how great you are, all of those things.
Actually recognize me as a human being. Very lovely as well. That I exist.
But I was like, making sure we're recording, but that sometimes or in the past has come from a place of, for lack of a better word, and of not enough, right? Like,
yeah.
So even if your spouse is telling you those things, if you're not in the space of feeling sufficient enough, whatever you want to call it, you won't be in that receiving capacity to actually receive it and take it in. Do you want to talk about, I guess, your side, and I'll talk about my side?
Well, I think it's something that I don't recognize, because you're like, oh, look what I did. It's almost like the little boy who comes running home from school is like, oh, Mom, I got 100. I got, okay, great. It's like, but I got it for you. And it's like, oh, did you really? But you told me I was supposed to get 100, whatever it happens to be, or an A.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. And I don't think as adults that, I mean, for me growing up, like that is the way that I earned love, is through grades, is through, if I made really good grades, then I would get acknowledged and my mom would be proud of me. She might tell me she loves me, those types of things. And so we carry that with us, unless we're aware of it and we make changes and we work on ourselves, we carry that with us into every relationship that we go. So for you, was that actually like grades, or was it like doing things and then that pleased your mom and made her happy?
I think it was probably both.
Yeah.
I know the grades were very important. But then so was, whatever you did, cleaning your room, or picking up the living room, or I can't remember what else were the some different scenarios, what we had to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, something of that sort.
Yeah. So then we are brought up and we're taught that if we do these things, then these people are pleased, are loving, show affection.
Must appease the gods with the
I mean, I know you're joking. I know you're joking about it, but like that's exactly what happens, right? And so then we take that into our marriages, because we've both been married before, right? Like we take that into our marriage of like, look, this is what I did. Like how many times, this is one of the things that we were talking about before we got started, is like, how many times did you used to clean the kitchen from a place of like, I cleaned it for you, Aaron, and it would used to piss me off so much, because I also had a story around, I do a lot of things too, and no one gives me attaboys either. So like having both of those experiences come and meet, right? Like, so you're doing it from a place of like, oh, she loves the clean kitchen.
Mhm.
I'm doing this. I want to please her. And then when you do it and you're like, well, thank me, not in those words, right? But you're like, hey, notice I did it. Say thank you. It would cause resentment and resistance in me, because I'm like, why do I have to thank you? I do all these other things and no one thanks me.
Mhm.
But here we go back to, I'm not responsible for meeting your needs. You're not responsible for meeting my needs. If I was grateful and proud of myself, that of all of the things that I did for our family and that I wanted to do, this is another topic, right? That we want to do, then we don't need someone else to validate our feelings or how
Mhm.
we're, yes, it's nice to be seen, but listen, if I was appreciated all of the work that I did for our family, I don't need you to tell me. It's nice, but it's kind of like the analogy of like, you have these beautiful flowers in a really crappy house. It's like, doesn't matter how many flowers you get, the house is still crappy. But if you have a really nice house and you bring in flowers, it just enhances that house.
Well, what I was going to say was, it's also when you figure out, if you want to say it that way, to do it for yourself and to do it for your own self-recognition, your own, I wanted to do this. I like the way it looks now, whatever it happens to be. And that's why I did it. I didn't do it so that I could post a picture on Instagram, or I didn't do it so that my wife wouldn't be angry with me when she got home, such as, you know, when you go away and I have to clean the kitchen for 3 days because I destroyed it before.
That's the running joke. He like leaves it a mess. But I have gotten different, right? Like I've gotten to the point where like, if the kitchen's dirty, it's dirty.
Yeah.
And if I want to clean it,
but
I'll
I
clean
do
it.
appreciate a nice wipe down countertop, everything sorted out kitchen, because you can actually work in there better.
Yeah.
When I have to cook you all your meals. Which you forced me to do.
Such a liar. So what were some of the ways that you would do things, but you were doing them to try to please me?
Oh, the kitchen is the big one.
Versus now.
I know, picking up the kitchen.
That you used to do it, like you do it and be like, I hope she likes it. I hope she likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'd always say, why don't you ever wipe down the countertops? Because I never always wiped down all the countertops. It was like, you know, spot clean the mess here, spot clean the mess there. But, you know, the stuff being on the counter, but we also had a ton of countertop space. So it wasn't really a problem. You just moved. And then once you ran out of countertop space, you cleaned up. I think that's odd when I did it.
I think also too, there was a place for me, it was coming from when we feel, okay, so when we feel safe, and most of the times we feel that sometimes within our like little group, right? Like within our, it starts off when we're when we're with our parents, or like when we're within our immediate family union, like husband and wife. But when you were at Fire, it was almost like an impression you wanted to make on people. And so you would get upset when I would say things like, do you wipe them down at Fire? And you used to get so mad at me. And it wasn't from a place of like, you were assuming I was asking, well, you do it for them and you don't do it for us. And that's not the place I was coming from. It was coming from, I'm so curious, what makes you do it there and not here? But in learning, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's like, oh, you're wanting to impress, for lack of a better word. I don't know what the word would be, versus like, Erin accepts me as I am. She knows me inside and out, versus I want them to see what I'm doing. It's almost like you took that into Fire after we worked through what, you know, the reasons you were doing it here at the house. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, there's definitely like the expectations were there, and it's what was supposed to be done, just as, you know, if you want to say tucking your shirt in. Yeah. Like, I don't tuck my shirt at the house. Well, you tuck your shirt in at work? Well, yeah, I tuck my, because that's what they expect me to do. Yeah. But then again, you could roll that into, well, do you expect me to wipe down the countertops? And you don't expect me to wipe down the countertop, but you appreciate when countertops are wiped down. Yeah. So. And I think it's also like,
this goes back to like appreciating our spouses. Like, yes, thank you for doing that. And also it's not your responsibility to do things so I can feel a certain way. I think that's what a lot of people do, right? Like if you think about when we went to therapy, do you remember the lady? And I remember like writing out the check and I'm like, why do we keep going? Because all that keeps happening is she keeps asking, what are your needs? What are your needs? And we're both not meeting each other's needs.
Mhm.
So why do we keep going around in this circle?
As opposed to fulfilling our
My own
needs.
yeah, like what do I want? Like when we want someone to say, I appreciate you, I love you, what we really need to be doing is saying, Erin, I love you, I appreciate you, and all you do.
Mhm.
Which goes back to Mother's Day, right? Like it was so fitting that Grayson was like, I'm so happy I don't live in another family because I'm not obligated to say happy Mother's Day. Like I don't want Grayson growing up in a house where you feel obligated to, you know, try to please, which you can't, right? Like if you don't feel it in yourself, you're not going to be able to receive it from someone else.
Well, that also might come from when I call my mom and she's like, okay, thanks. You did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now let me go back to doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I thought we were gonna have a conversation, but I guess not.
Yeah. So do you call your mom out of obligation?
Because it's Mother's Day. Yeah, absolutely.
But why do you still do that if you don't want to?
Because that's what she expects to have happen. Just like, I mean, what did her first thing she said? You were on a conversation. First thing she said, well, it's a little late. It's like, well, first off, it's a 5-hour time difference, right? 5 hour. Anyways, it's a 5-hour time difference. So by the time we got up, it was already late in her eyes, you know.
Do you still feel like, are you still that little boy that's trying to please your mom in some ways?
I'm sure there's something I don't on the conscious side. I'm
Right.
like, I don't care anymore. Like,
right. But on the subconscious,
I'm sure on the subconscious, I'm like, oh my God, I have to call my mom.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I have to call my mom. She's gonna get upset if I don't call her.
Yeah.
And
but you just confirmed it doesn't matter what we do if that person is not meeting their own needs, is not pleased themselves, no matter what. Like the goalpost will always change, right? Like you could have called her and she might have another reason why she's displeased with you, right?
Come visit at that stage, or that I wasn't there, or whatever it happened to be.
Yeah. So first and foremost, of pleasing ourselves and doing what we want to do. Because I think when we do what we want to do, when we are able to show up as our whole self, as our, I don't want to say happy selves, right? Because we're not always happy all the time, but like pleasing ourselves, and then everybody else gets to benefit from that versus expecting you to do the things I want you to do. So what are some of the things that I used to expect you to do?
I honestly, I don't know.
I
always go back to the kitchen.
Yeah. Because I used to have a story is if the kitchen was nice and clean, here we go back to externals, right? If the kitchen is nice and clean, then I can feel like calm, right? But what I had to work through is the kitchen can be a mess and I can still feel calm. The kitchen can have dirty dishes and I can still feel calm in my body.
And then the clothing purgatory.
Tell us about that.
To where it's not dirty enough to go in the hamper, but it's not clean enough to go back into the closet or wherever you keep your clean clothes. So that just kind of lives like the jeans. They just kind of live on like a chair or something, and I'm just going to wear them the next day.
Yeah.
Or in my case, all my clothing except for my underwear, that just goes in the hamper.
Yeah. So we don't have much like at our other house, and here too. Well, here now we have like a dresser and stuff, but at the other house we didn't have a dresser. So there wasn't a lot of places to store stuff. But now I think,
well, the side of the bed,
on the actual floor.
Yeah, that's a great place. It's right there. You get out of bed, your clothing is at the ready.
Yeah. So did I used to have a problem with it?
I still think you have a problem with it. I just don't know.
Do you really?
I don't think you enjoy. Well, you said it today. Why are your headphones on the floor here?
That's not what I said. I said, I just want you to know if your headphones are on the floor, I might, because I just stepped on them when I was making the bed. I was like, I might step on them.
So your AirPods go flying across the room. Why are they safely on the floor?
Come on.
So
I had stepped on them and I was like, oh shit, I just stepped on them. Like,
yeah, $9 headphones. Please don't do that. probably $12.
Okay, so clearly you think that I still get upset about things on the floor.
No, I don't think you get upset anymore, at least not verbally upset. But I am like a little like, whatever you want to call it. Who was the Charlie Brown character?
I don't know.
No, that was a teacher.
Oh, okay. What is it?
I don't know if it was Linus. He was blanket tie. Anyways, just always like wandering around with like a little pig pen, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Dirt swirl going everywhere.
Yeah.
So everywhere you went, there was a giant dirt swirl. Where are you going?
And I'm going to turn it down. And do you think that that is how you are, how you operate?
No, but I think that there's
you like to accumulate things.
I think there's a certain point of where I'm like, I gotta pick the stuff up now.
Yeah.
But it's just it comes to there's a point that even I can't take it.
Yeah.
And that's where I do the cleanup. And I'm like, oh, my shoes are over there, my other shoes are over here. And then eventually I'm like, oh, I should probably put those shoes away because I've pushed them out of the way several times and they're in my way now. So I'll push them away. Or I should put that away because I might need those tomorrow and I won't be able to find them, but I found them now. So, yeah.
And now, what do you think?
Well, that's the now thoughts.
Now for Aaron, does Aaron like care about the kitchen? Does Aaron care about?
You are more appreciative of a clean kitchen, but I think when the kitchen is destroyed, you at least don't say anything. But I don't know if I'm like the deep down, you're like, oh, I can't stand when it does this.
No.
But then you just put up with it because it's me.
No.
And there's so many other positive benefits of being with me. Outshine the.
No, I actually just don't care anymore, and not like a flippant like I don't care. Right. But I just worked through that part where it's like, you know what, if he wants to have the kitchen messy, then he can have the kitchen messy and he can also clean it up. And I think for a lot of women, I think they think like, oh, the kitchen can't be messy because it's like a reflection of themselves. Like, that's what I used to think. If I have a messy kitchen or I have a messy house, it's a reflection of myself. And I'm like, oh, I mean, a freaking thing about me. And my house is my house. But I think that, well, two parts. One, I have a certain way of living in my house and my family has a certain way of living in the house, which is vastly different. Like there's not much stuff that I accumulate or keep out or have places that aren't in their place, but you and Grayson do, and that's okay. But before it used to be like, if you kept it out, then it would really bother me. But now it's like, I do give limits to Grayson, like, okay, this day, if you're going to keep all your stuff out, either you pick it up or I'm picking it up.
Yeah, and there's a difference when she's got whatever socks in every single room. It's not like a pile of socks. Her bedroom is completely different than the rest of the house.
Yeah.
Her bedroom just looks like an explosion, but the rest of the house is where that explosion shrapnel comes out of.
Yeah.
Pens everywhere, colored pencils, like you've been seeing everywhere.
So do you still do things from a place of like, I hope Aaron will, like, did you
paint?
You do?
Yeah, I still do things to, I mean, let's, because you pointed to it, I didn't paint the room because I'm like, I really want to paint the room. I wanted to paint the room because it was very drab.
Yeah.
It wasn't a nice backdrop for you.
Yeah.
And when you have to come in here and work, you're like, oh man, these are really, really cool. Like, that's why I really pushed to get the other colors or the gray for the other parts of the wall. I really went through, but because now it looks really nice. And it's a little spot for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just would have painted the one wall and wouldn't have worried about much and be like, it's done. But now we're like, oh no, it all blends together really nicely.
But there's the desire of like this, my spouse really likes this. And then there's that place of like, oh, if I do this, then she will finally say thank you.
Correct.
And I think where you're coming from is like, oh, Aaron really likes this. I like to paint. It will give me something to do.
Yep.
And she loves it. Versus, oh, I have to do this for her because if I don't, then she's either going to be upset or she's not, or she's going to, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, it's not like a honeydew list that you give me. It's like, what'd you put on there, like daddy requests or
daddy desires.
Like, yeah, like what would you like me to do? Like, yeah, and there are some things you're like, hey, you gotta sort out all the stuff that's yours in the living room or whatnot. And that certainly needs to be taken care of. But like, oh, will you do this for me? Like, sure, I'll do that part for you. So, but there's also things that I do in the house, and there's also things that you do in the house. Like, I don't be like, oh, you need to do taxes for the next, 4 days for me, or whatever that happens to be, or sort through all our life's finances, or
yeah, I think that there's
figure
a
out how to
difference.
move us across the ocean.
No, I think that there's a difference of like, what do we each kind of bring and contribute to the relationship? And then there's also the like, it's kind of like, this was never me in terms of dressing up for my husband, because I don't dress up for anyone. But some women are like, I want to dress up because I want to look nice for him, and I want him to say, oh, you look so pretty. But I feel pretty, I feel good in my body.
It's not hard.
Oh, I thought you were like, well, I'm like, whatever, I feel pretty, I don't care what you say. But if I didn't, and I was searching for that for you, like, hey, tell me I'm pretty, or does this look good on me, or like constantly wanting your love and affection to fill the cup. It's kind of like when you have a little hole in your cup, it doesn't matter how much we're pouring in it, it's never going to fill full. And I think a lot of times we expect our spouses to meet those needs, whatever they are. Love, appreciation, recognition, whatever, it all comes back to, right? Love and belonging and connection. And then we're disappointed when we don't, because I think there's two parts of it, right? We're disappointed when they don't behave how we want them to behave, right? And we're also disappointed when they don't behave how we want. And sometimes we're not in that receiving mode to be able to, because there have been times where I'm like, thank you. And then you won't even acknowledge it. And I'm like, and I've started to be like, are you ready to receive it?
Hear me tell you, thank you for doing this. Because I'm like, oh, yes, yeah, sure, of course I did that.
Yep.
No, I recognize when you say that, and I'm like, oh, because it is very easy to be looking for the recognition. Of, oh, I wanted to tell me how nice it is that I shaved today, whatever it happens to be. And you're like, oh, look at you, you shaved today. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, thanks. And you're like, no. Did you hear me? I said, thank you for cutting that disgusting scruff sandpaper off your face.
It's not what I say, but I think that's really, I really am appreciative of it, right? And receiving it on your end of like, I mean, the joke is like, where do you feel that in your body? And of course, he mentions one place of where he feels it in his body, but like, I think that that's a big thing, right? Like we're looking for these things outside of ourselves, but we don't even know how to fulfill it within us, right? We don't even know what it feels like. We don't even know what appreciation or gratitude or enjoyment or fun or love feels like in our body. We're just like, give it to me. You're not doing this for me, but we don't even know how to cultivate that for ourselves first.
Yeah, like you used like when you talked about Grayson's one camp school teacher, where you said she noted that she was very self-aware. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So interesting.
But you do. You notice when you have gotten to that space of like, oh, this is what I'm doing in the moment, right? This is what I might be thinking, or this might be, maybe you haven't gotten to the place of like knowing how you feel, like the actual sensations in your body. But like, I'm frustrated right now. When Grayson kind of tests you and you start to feel that frustration or that anger, right? You feel that. And for self-awareness, it takes some slowing down, right? It takes I think we're in a society of so much doing that we don't even give ourselves a hot second to be like, well, wait a minute, because I watch it now and it's like, oh, you're getting upset with Grayson. But if you were to actually pause and like go through that process of like, oh, I'm upset because
this is what's happening.
Right. But sometimes it just happens so fast because we're just acting from old programming. Right. So And also we can have gratitude and appreciation for our spouse. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I wanted to
expecting.
put in there also,
Yeah.
was because I don't know, there are certain things that I do because you are my wife. And would I do them for somebody else? I mean, of course, being me, I would,
Yeah.
but also it's like, oh, she really appreciates when, I change the sheets. Okay, so I change sheets. Or
Yeah.
when I get, do the laundry and get all fresh towels for her at the start of the week, whatever it happens to be.
Right.
Because we just came out of a Sunday and that's what we just do on Sundays.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, thanks for changing the sheets.
Yeah.
Thanks for changing Grayson's bed for us. That was really helpful. It's like, well, yeah, I did it because it was you.
Right.
Then you don't have to do it. Not looking this, and maybe that's a different way. I do things so that you don't have to do them. Not necessarily looking for the recognition, but then maybe the acknowledgement, like, oh, hey, thanks for doing this. Now I don't have to.
But here's the other thing. This has been a big thing for me and you, is I never want you to do anything for me that compromises you, or you're doing it because you don't want to, right? There's a difference of compromising of, you know what, like, let's use Grayson and Target. Shopping's not my most favorite thing, right? But I will go sometimes because I love to be with my kid and I want to connect with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of compromise, right? For Aaron, right? Compromising in a way that's not healthy, which causes disease in our bodies, is I don't want to continue to go to your parents' house. I hate going, I resent going, and I keep going to please you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just using that like as an example, right? A lot of people continue to do things for their spouses when they actually don't want to do it. You're doing it from a space, I think, of like, hey, the sheets need to be clean. Aaron likes the sheets. I'll do the sheets while I'm doing whatever.
Yep.
Not a problem, right? The same thing like for what I do for you, right? Not the sheets, but other things, right? And so doing those things is very different of, I enjoy doing it. It doesn't, I'm not compromising myself or my integrity to please you.
Yes.
Right.
And I completely understand you, but I'm like trying to think of a scenario that would even occur. And I'm like,
I used to, when you were trying to do BMW and fire and all the things, there were times where I was doing it. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't think I had a choice. That's what I'm really getting at.
Okay.
I didn't think I could say, after you were doing all these other things, listen, I'm tapped out. I don't want to do Grayson this Saturday all by myself, or whatever it might be. You need to take her, or you need to, do these other things. I want some time by myself, or whatever it might be. I think sometimes we can get into this, well, I don't have a choice. If he's not going to do it, who's going to do it for me?
Gotcha.
Versus either you decide you want to do it, we sub it out, or it just doesn't get done. And then making that decision versus doing it from that resentful place.
Mm-hmm.
And feeling like I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why I think I use parents, in-laws, right? Because I think a lot of people go to in-laws' house that don't want to go,
mm-hmm.
right?
Well, maybe yeah. I enjoy your parents.
But I have always said, right? If you don't want to go to my parents' house, don't go to my parents' house.
And there's times I don't go.
Yeah.
Like their anniversary thing.
Yep.
I chose to go to work instead.
And my mom got really mad about that. And you know what? It was totally okay that my mom got mad and that you honored your choice,
mm-hmm.
right? But I think that takes some, I don't want to say effort, but like you knew that was going to upset my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if you were completely 100% upfront with her. The difference between me and you is I'll just tell the person and I'm okay with them being upset. You will kind of like roundabout.
Dance around it.
Yeah, you'll passively do it, right? And there's no right or wrong. It's just like, where's your comfort level and what you want to do, right? But you didn't want to go for whatever reason. And my mom
I just
wanted,
didn't want to hang out with your entire family. If it was just your parents, I would go, but I don't want to hang out with all of them.
but my mom
Oh, God.
wanted me, my mom wanted me to tell you to come. And I was like, I'm not telling him to come. If he doesn't want to come, he doesn't have to come. It's like owning, this is what I was talking about Tanya today. It's like, what freedom, that's such freedom in a relationship when you get to be exactly who you are,
Mhm.
right? It's like the same thing when you say, listen, Aaron, I don't want to travel as much as you do.
Yeah.
And having the freedom to say that and not going along with me because you know that will please me, and then you being upset and resentful, whatever, in the process of it. You saying, no, I want a home base. I want to stay here. You can go off and I'll choose the trips I want to go on with you.
And then regret not going with you after the fact.
Do you really? You don't regret that?
Well, you've
regret
never
things?
really gone on a trip without me. I mean, you go out when you go out with your girlfriends or something like that, it's different because it's like, okay, I'm not going to go do the Tanya drive with you or whatever it happens to be. But if you were like, oh, I'm going to go to wherever, Morocco, and go surfing, and be like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to go.
Uh-huh.
And then like 2 days out, I'm like, no, why didn't I go? That was a horrible idea.
So what do you, if anything, have you learned or want to share that, like, it's really hard to try to please somebody, isn't it? Don't you feel like that?
But we got to go back to why you're trying to please them.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's hard.
I do.
But if you're trying to please me and I can't even please myself,
Yeah,
there's a different scenario about that.
that's what I'm saying.
But if I'm like, I'm doing these things, me to you, you're not expecting it. And you're just like, oh, thank you so much for doing that. And I'm like, oh, you're welcome for doing that. And I think that works out well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like, well, I did it because, I wanted to make you happy. That's a different way of thinking at it, as opposed to I did it because I wanted to make your office look pretty with the backdrop.
There was a point in our relationship when you did try to do all the things and I was very unhappy. I was unhappy with my life.
But that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
that's where you're saying it's hard to do it, but it's not until you get to that point, at least in your innards, whatever it is, that I do it because I want to make.
Aaron's already happy. The
You're
house
already
is
happy,
there.
so you're
You're just
already
adding the
there.
flowers.
Yeah, and I'm just like
Yeah.
doing like, the little bits and pieces that make it just a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
Like when you were asking about a desk, so we're looking at a different desk for you. It's like, oh, the desk works perfectly fine. I'm not unhappy with this desk. If you were, we would make a faster change about it. But that the desk is not that next level of achievement that we've said, like when people are like, oh, I just need $1,000 to be happy, or then it's 1,500, then it's 2,000, then it's 100,000, and so on and so forth. But they're using the money side of it for some as a word for something else. Is that you know where I'm trying to go? I just don't know what I'm trying to say.
Like you just keep changing the goalpost.
Yeah, you just keep moving the goalpost farther and farther back.
Right.
To whereas me doing something for you,
Yeah, I'm already happy. It's just
already achieved. Yeah, you're already there. So me doing something is like, oh, thank you. That does look a lot better.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you moved this over. Whatever it happens to be like, you want to put a little flower back there. So you get a little flower back there. You're like, oh, nice. I do like that. It looks good in the little mirror or the camera reflection or camera view, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, no, now we need to do this. And now we need, well, at what point are you going to be happy? And I think that's probably a good marriage thing. At what point are you going to say, okay, I'm finally happy and we can stop? Not necessarily stop evolving, but
stop changing.
Now start fine tuning it to be like, okay, now I'm really happy. Because you can be like, oh, I need the mirror up and this, and I need more pictures in the back. And think, well, what was wrong with the first picture? That was nice. So on and so forth.
Yeah. It's like if you're not happy within, if you're not content, if you are not fulfilled within yourself, You cannot expect your spouse or anyone else to do that for you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people don't even know what they want. Like, what is even going to make you happy? I mean, I remember you and I would have just you could just record the conversations and it just hit play, 6 months, every 6 months. It's like, I just want to make you happy. That's what you would say. And Aaron being like, I don't even know what I want, right? Like, I have been so used to and conditioned to like pleasing everyone else except myself. I don't even know what that it would even look like. So first, focusing on each of ourselves, and also like, one, so much freedom when you get to just show up in the relationship and be who you are. And two, how much fun it is just to be like, yeah, and we can do this or we can not do this, versus this, my spouse is going to be upset because you're constantly trying to please the other. It's like freedom in being who we are, and freedom in allowing our spouse to be who they are too. And I think a lot of times it's like we're taught to see if you can conform and contort into this certain kind of person that your spouse wants you to be, versus Jason just gets to be whoever he is. And that's the end of the story. So. What else?
I'm not here to provide your what else needs, ma'am. What else do you need?
I do have some needs that only you can provide me.
All right then.
So, okay. But for real, nothing else? Appreciations and all the things?
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Good. Works out better that way.
It does. And I hope that you feel that you get to be exactly who you are.
Oh, I definitely do.
No holding back. Maybe.
Oh God, I think it's funny.
I'm like, okay, maybe you do.
Find teams I have to wear pants when I go outside, so yes, I feel back a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
yeah,
I'm good.
Okay. Until next time.
Yep.
You want to say goodbye?
Goodbye.